World of Warcraft Vanilla. The good old days. Some people consider this to be the golden age of World of Warcraft and some despise it. Personally, I love World of Warcraft Vanilla, and there are a fair amount of people out there that disagree with me and simply don't get it. So I decided to make this video about what I liked about World of Warcraft Vanilla. Back in the 90s, I was a huge fan of RTS games. Matter of fact, I have every single game of the Command & Conquer series, but I never really got into the Warcraft series. Why, you ask? Well, because mostly I spent my time playing the Command & Conquer series and I was young, so I didn't have any allowance, which means I couldn't go out there and just buy the game. However, in the early years of 2000, I managed to get a hold of a game called Warcraft 3, and right from the beginning I was hooked. The storyline was amazing, the characters were unique, and each level had something unique to offer. So naturally, when I heard about Blizzard releasing an MMO of Warcraft, I was intrigued. When the game first hit the shelves in Holland, I went right to the stores and managed to get myself a copy of this game, even though the queues were massive. As soon as I made my character and logged in, I was amazed by this grand world that there was for me to discover, with all these different zones, mobs, quests, abilities, and much, much more. Which brings me to my first point about what I liked about World of Warcraft Vanilla. You see, every expansion for World of Warcraft brings something new to the table, such as new items, higher level cap, new abilities, but the bare basics of the game will always be the same. The formula of World of Warcraft hasn't really changed, which is why it was much more interesting when World of Warcraft first came out. It was a brand new game where nobody really knew what they were doing and didn't even know if they chose the right class because, well, everything was completely new, which adds to the excitement the game brought, and that's really what my first point is all about. If you play with your friends, the experience of discovering on how to actually play the game properly was interesting, and I will not deny confusing at sometimes. But that's what made things interesting. Because of the lack of knowledge, people had to ask others for advice, which added to the socializing aspect of the game. It really felt like you weren't alone. You were working together and helping each other out become a better player. And that brings me to my second point, the difficulty of this game. Back in the days of Vanilla, normal non-elite mobs that were about the same level as you were actually able to kill you, which means you had to come up with some sort of strategy on how to cope with a pack of mobs. Nowadays, you barely ever get below 50% health when you're just starting out, so there's no feeling of danger and you don't develop strategy. I mean, people complain all the time that people in dungeons and raids have no common sense and coordination, but that's what happens when you take the difficulty away from the leveling content. You're dumbing down the game, which results in people knowing barely anything about teamwork and strategy once they hit level cap. This really was one of the strong points of Vanilla. Sometimes the difficulty was annoying, but challenging doesn't always mean it's less fun. Even for some non-elite quests you had to plan with another player on how to kill these mobs, which meant you had to talk and socialize to people. A good example was the quest Stolen Silver in the Barrens, where you had to kill 2 or 3 raptors to get some silver. Nowadays it's a quest that's very doable on your own, but in Vanilla you actually had to find at least one more player in order to do it, and even then you had to come up with some sort of a strategy on how to kill these mobs. I can remember very clearly that I was a druid and I teamed up with a mage, so we actually had to sit there and say, well, okay, I can use roots on one of them, then you Frost Nova the second one and we'll kill the third raptor, and after that one we'll kill the one you Frost Nova, and I will refresh my roots, yada yada yada. That's the amount of thinking we had to do for a simple non-elite quest. It takes about 1 minute to complete in today's world. And as most people agree, socializing is healthy and it's one of the most important things in an MMO game. You're playing together with thousands of people in one giant world. Not having to work together with them and being able to level all on your own completely gets rid of having to socialize. Alright, on to my third point, raiding. Right now there might be a bunch of people thinking, really? Raiding? That was horrible in Vanilla. And while I do agree on the fact that it wasn't easy to get 40 people together who were attuned, had the gear, had the time and knew the strats, but when you got a good solid group together, man, it was epic. My first time raiding, I was absolutely blown away. My first raid ever was Molten Core, which I will admit had very annoying attunement quests. But once you flew to Blackrock Mountain, got into the dungeon and saw 39 other people standing there, ready to work together in order to defeat some of the most epic and hardest mobs in the game, it was all worth it. Just the sheer chaos of all the spells and abilities flying around you while you were doing your job was epic. You weren't just the healer anymore, you were together with a whole team of healers that felt united, and if you didn't know something or wanted advice, you could just ask another healer for tips or something like that. I know that 40-man raids caused a lot of drama and annoyance, but when you downed the raid boss together and you heard 39 other people go nuts in Ventrilo, or TeamSpeak, you couldn't help but join the fun. In Burning Crusade, Blizzard introduced for the first time ever 10-man raids, which fixed a lot of the drama problems, and less people meant that there was a bigger chance of everyone showing up, and while I admit I had a great time in Karazhan, it just doesn't really compare to the sheer epicness of a 40-man raid. Also, I just stated that the attunement quests for Nyxia and Molten Core were very annoying, but they were necessary. How, you might ask? Well, because it learned people about discipline. If you want to participate in the hardest encounters in the game, you had to work hard for it. You had to suck it up and push through, which was the exact mentality that you needed for raiding. So in a way, it trains you mentally for the raids you were able to do in the future. That's a good thing. Well, that's pretty much all I can think of right now at the top of my head. I'm sure there are many more reasons why people like vanilla so much, and I'm sure I could think of a few, but these are the ones that were most on my mind while making this video. So, what was your favorite moment or thing in WoW Vanilla? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and all that good stuff. I'm Hamsterwheel Gaming, over and out.